Today I'm going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to take an article that was read or written, I should say, online, or specifically medium.com. If you never checked out medium.com, it's essentially a self-proclaimed blogging home space where people can go there, blog, and share their community. They don't need a WordPress site. It's essentially write, hit publish, and there's lots of famous people that you probably have never heard of on here as well. And I will include a link for this article in the show notes as well. It was authored by Jerry Rumor on May 4th. So the title of this one is 10 Things to Do Instead of Scrolling Through Your Smartphone. I like the title because I could put my own spin on it, but I also wanted to bring some different perspective, but also, as we do regularly on this podcast, we bring different perspective, and different and new ideas often lead us to think differently, allow us to realize that the same thing that is right there in front of us is there right there in front of us, and we often can't see it until we have perspective and be like, whoa, where'd that come from? Let's dive into it. Number one he has on this list is learning new skills. Now, this is something that, as a man who learns a lot throughout many months, I almost take it for granted of how many people don't go out there and learn a lot of new skills. I am addicted to Audible. I am always reading. I'm listening to podcasts. Any downtime I have, I'm putting an earbud in my head. Even in the car, I'm putting one earbud in my ear so I can have one ear listening to the kids and the other ear listening to something going on. So learning a new skill is something that we don't fully appreciate in our business, in our life, in our career. And we often wonder why we get stagnated results. I mean, there are so many random cool things that you could go learn about, like the 80-20 world. If you've never learned about the 80-20 principle, look it up. The law of attraction, the law of wealth, the law of reciprocity. All these random, cool, interesting names are out there on the internet for you to learn. And there's a mountain of information out there on Amazon, Audible, all these different areas can go. It is not a shortage of time that we should worry us, but the tendency for the majority of time to be spent in low quality ways. That comes from the 80-20 principle, Richard Koch, the author of that. And essentially it is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. And scientifically proven, when you break down the 80-20 rule, it generally mysteriously works just like it says. Number two, watch a documentary. I can't tell you how much time this doesn't have for in my life because it takes a lot of time to watch a documentary. You got to sit down in front of your couch. You got to have kid-free time because most documentaries aren't kid-appropriate, or at least younger kid-appropriate. And I wish I'll be the older guy when they watch a History Channel or binge watching a lot of documentaries, learning a lot of different things. And so a documentary is one of those, if you got the time, take some time, look at them. Right in the same category is often like TEDx talks, taking the time to watch a few TEDx talks. There's so much TEDx talks out there that you could learn from. Some of the ones that were mentioned here is The Social Dilemma, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, Fantastic Fungi, 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. So many different stories can inspire change in your life, and a documentary can be one of them. Number three, building an online income stream. If you've ever complained about not earning enough money, but you still waste hours per day scrolling through social media feeds or news apps, put your smartphone away and get to work. As this podcast exists, my business exists, my life exists because of the internet. It has never been easier to start a business or create an extra income stream. This is the best time to be alive because instantly you have access to all the information, all the questions you can answer and need answers to are available on Google once you know the right question. So think, live, and go do something on the internet to earn a little bit extra money. Read books. Jan Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, said the big problem in America is that everyone is spending 2 to 3 hours a day watching TV. If you spend the same amount of time reading, you'll be in the top 1% of whatever your field is. We often think that we have to go through all of these processes and paths that are college and career and corporate letters, but a lot of the information is already out there. You just got to devote being able to read a book and devote time to finish it. If you read 15 pages per day, you'd finish roughly 27 books per year, as the average nonfiction book is about 200 pages. How cool would it be to say you read 27 books per year? That'd be pretty cool, I think. I know I'd probably read like 10 to 15, and it's a pretty cool thing that I get to say I do, and I get to continue to learn, and I get to prove that I really don't know anything. Every time I read one of the books, I'm always like, man, where did that come from? Well, there's a few books that he mentions here in this, and then these are some of them I've read, some I have not. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've heard it quoted many times, and there's many things that I pulled from that book, but I've actually never read that book by Stephen Covey. This one I have read, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle. I've heard the name Eckhart Tolle, but I have not read the book A New Earth. So many different things. Again, you think you know things, and then you don't. Number 4, get organized. All that time spent staring at your screen could be spent getting organized. And all of this idea of, there's an idea that comes out of a podcaster named Ryan Mickler that I learned a long time ago. And it says, don't complain about your life if your car is a hot mess or your garage is a hot mess. There are so many areas where we could just feel, if we were to just go clean them. I know when my car is clean, I feel better. I feel less stressed when I get back in that car. And same thing with my garage. When I walk out and see an organized garage, now the kids are the enemy when it comes to both of these categories, but knowing that you can keep it organized, especially if it's only a work vehicle and you don't have kids in it, then you're really the common denominator here. And as Abraham Lincoln once said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Getting organized is a metaphorical sharpening of the axe, which makes each day flow more efficiently. Next one, do something creative. Painting, making music, photography, writing, DIY projects, building things, fixing things. This is one that I underestimated for a long time in my life, that I wasn't learning new skills, even barbecuing. I never wanted to own a charcoal because I'd always get frustrated every time this thing would have problems and I never could get it to work. And then someone showed me and I'm like, you know what? I want to own and understand the art of charcoaling. So I have a charcoal. I feel like I got a little bit stagnant, so that's maybe a call out that I need to dive back into charcoaling and also smoking on the Weber. I've had conversations, but I really should, not to should myself because I don't like to be a shouldaholic, and I am a shouldaholic or a recovering shouldaholic. So I am going to potentially reinvest time. Another one that I really need to kick into high gear because I've been wanting to do all year is the time with an archery bow. I've been around a few people that do archery. I've watched it on social media, and I'm fascinated by this skill to get an arrow to go to the end and hit a target. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of skill, and part of becoming a man or understanding your own skill set is taking something that you initially suck at and getting to the point where you are good at it. That is something that we don't value enough in society, but we need to value every day of the week because it is something that gives you more juice, gives you more confidence in all the other areas of your life. Next one, and this one is right on my list, go for a walk in nature. Research has shown that most people spend about 90% of their time indoors. No wonder this generation is called the indoor generation. I never heard us called the indoor generation, but I wholeheartedly buy that because I'll never forget in our old subdivision, there were all people in their 30s. They all had young kids. They would come out to mow their yard and they would go back inside. It was the most devastating thing that would happen on a weekly, monthly basis. It would be the first day of spring up here and people would be inside in their house. So remind yourself, go for a walk in nature. And the one thing that I'll give you, and if you're a long-time listener, you'll know this advice, is realize when you look around how abundant life is. Realize how abundant life is. Take your shoes off, take your socks off, and use all 5 senses to truly feel how much life is around you. And no matter what you feel, no matter what pressure you're feeling in your life, remember, life is abundant, the world is abundant, energy is abundant, and the world is made up of nothing but energy. Next one, listen to a podcast. You're listening to this podcast. You might be a Joe Rogan fan. Quick Brain by Jim Quick, the Pomp podcast about cryptocurrencies. There are over 1.5 million podcasts out there, around 800,000 active podcasts being published in the English language. So many different things that you want to learn can be learned in a podcast. You're listening to this podcast. Take the opportunity to go into your podcast app wherever you're playing and Google what is going on, what you want to learn more about. There's almost a podcast on everything out there. Write in a journal. There's a quote that he mentions in here. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Now, that sounds like it's a modern day statement. It sounds like it was written 3 years ago in the world of social media. That quote was from Marcus Aurelius, a person and a Stoic who lived 3,000 years ago. And the part that I love about Stoicism is it always sounds like it was yesterday, and it was 3,000 years ago. Never forget that. We've been suffering from the same human condition for so many years, and we often just think that these are new problems. No, these are problems that have been plaguing humanity forever. Instead of reading hundreds of opinions, angry comments, and discussions, and random strangers on the internet, take some time to look inward. Check with conversations going on inside yourself instead of on Twitter or TikTok. Next, identify your highest quality leisure activities. Make a list of your highest quality leisure activities. I guarantee for 90% of the people, scrolling through a smartphone won't make the list. In many cases, it's a form of low quality leisure. It doesn't really make us happy. Dopamine spike is short-lived, and it usually leaves us feeling more emotionally empty than before. Pornography falls in this category where you do it, you get high, and then at the end of it, you feel shame. You're like, ugh, it's over, and then you're back into that low. So understanding how to get yourself into a high quality leisure activity, figuring out going on long walks, playing video games with your friend, watching a great movie, lifting weights at the gym. This is one where you're almost hacking the dopamine effect, because on the other side of my gym workout, I absolutely love the feeling of the gym. I love the feeling of sweat in my shirt. I love the feeling of walking out and knowing I've spent that time investing in myself. And that dopamine hit is something I crave, and it pulls me to get back into the gym every day of the week. That is it for this list of 10 things to do instead of scrolling through your phone. Kind of not things that we haven't been talking about, but here on the Business of Fatherhood, wanted to compartmentalize it, just flip it up a little bit, because we often talk a lot about different things, and this seemed like something that we don't really talk a lot about. And to give you some statistics of why all these things that we just went through are important, 46% of smartphone users spend between 5 to 6 hours per day on their smartphone. The average adult spends 3 hours and 54 minutes on their mobile device per day. On average, we pick up our smartphones between 150 and 344 times per day. That's once every 4 minutes. During the pandemic, daily smartphone usage has nearly doubled among children. Fortunately, one of the most effective ways to spend less time on your smartphone is to have a clear list of productive, healthy, fulfilling, replacing habits. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you, Jerry, for writing this article. And again, there'll be a link if you want to read it in the show notes, as well on medium.com. Have an amazing day, and we'll be back again to do it all over.